About 10 minutes later, the bell rang the bell rang for tea, and as Virginia didn't come down, Mrs. Otis sent up one of the footmen to tell her. After a little time, he returned and said that he couldn't find Miss Virginia anywhere, as she was in the habit of going out to the garden every evening to get flowers for the dinner table. Mrs. Otis was not at all alarmed at first, but when 6 o'clock struck, Virginia didn't appear. She became really disturbed and sent the boys out to look for her, while she herself and Mrs. Otis searched every room in the house. At 6:30, the boys came back and said they couldn't find no trace sign for of their sister anywhere. They were all now in the greatest state of excitement and didn't know what to do when Mrs. Otis suddenly remembered that some few days before he had given a band of Crispin permission to camp in the park. He accordingly at once set off the Blackfell Hello, where he knew they were. Accompanied by his eldest son and two of the farm servants, the little Duke of Cherries, who was perfectly frantic, which means almost mad with anxiety, begged hard to be allowed to go. But Mrs. Otis would not allow him, as he was afraid there might be a scuffle fight. On arriving at the stop spot, however, he found the glimpse and had gone. It was evident that their departure had been rather sudden, as the fire was still burning, and some plates are lying on the grass. Having sent off Washington and the two men to search the district, he ran home and dispatched telegrams to all the police inspectors in the country, telling them to look out for a little girl who had been kidnapped by tramps or grips. He then ordered his horse to be brought round, and after insisting on his wife and the three sons sitting down to dinner, rode off down the escort road with the groom. He had hardly, however, gone a couple of miles when he heard somebody galloping after him, and looking round, saw the little Duke coming up on his pony with his father very flushed, which means red color, and no hat. I'm awfully sorry, Mrs. Otis grabs out the boys, but I can't eat any dinner as long Virginia is lost. Please don't angry with me. If you had let us be engaged last years, there would never have been all this trouble. You won't send me back, will you? I can't go, I won't go. The minister could not help smiling at the handsome young rascal, and was a good deal touched as his devotion to Virginia. So leaning down from his horse, he patted him kindly on the shoulder and said, "Well, sir, if you want to go back, I suppose you must came with me, but I must get you hat escort." "On bother my hat, I won't, Virginia," cried the little Duke, laughing, and they galloped on the railway station. Then Mrs. Otis inquired of the station master if anyone answering to the description of Virginia has been seen on the platform, but could get no news of her. The station master, however, veered up and down the line and assured him that a strict watch would be kept for her after having bought a hat for the little Duke from a liner draper who was putting up his shutter. Mrs. Otis rode off a village about 4 miles away, which he was told was a well-known haunt of the Zipers, as there was a large common next to do. Here they roused up the rural policeman, but could get no information from him, and riding all over the common, they turned their horses' head homewards and reached the clans about 11 o'clock. That time, almost heartbroken, they found Washington and the twins waiting for them at the gatehouse with lanterns. As the venue was very dark, not the slightest trace of Virginia has been discovered. The Zyber has been caught on Broccoli Meadows, but she was not with them, and they had explained their sudden departure by saying that they had mistaken the date of a cotton flare and had gone off in a hurry for where they should be late. Indeed, they have a quite distress at hearing Virginia disappear, as they were very grateful to Mrs. Otis for having allowed to camp in his park. Four of the numbers had staying behind to help in the search. The car pond has been drugged and the whole chase thoroughly grown over, but without any result. It was evident that, for that night at any rate, Virginia was lost to them, and it was a state of the deepest depression that Mr. Otis and the boys walked up the house, the groom following behind with the two horses and the pony. In the hail, they found a group of frightened servants, and lying on a sofa in the library was poor Mrs. Otis, almost out of her mind with terror and anxiety, and having her forehead battered with dew calling by the old housekeeper. Mrs. Otis at once insisted on having some time at eat, and order up supper for the whole party. It was a melancholy meal, as hardly any one spoke. Even the twins were upstruck and stunned by they were very fond of their sister. When they had finished, Mrs. Orton, in spite of entreaties of the little Duke, ordered them all to bed, saying that nothing more could be done that night, and that he would telegraph in the morning to Scotland Yard for some detectives to be set down immediately. Just as they were passing out the dining room, midnight began to boom from the clock tower. When the last stroke sounded, they heard a crash and a sudden shrill cry. A dreadful peal of thunder shocked the house. A strain of unearthly music floated through the air. A panel at the top of the staircase flew back with a loud noise out of the landing, looking very pale and wild. With the white casket in her hand stepped Virginia. In a moment they had all rushed up to her. Mrs. Otis clasped her passionately in her arms. The Duke smothered her with violent kisses, and the twins executed a wild war dance round the group. "Good heaven, childs, where have you been?" said Mrs. Otis, rather angry, thinking that she has been playing some foolish trick on them. "And I have been riding all over the country looking for you, and your mother had been frightened that you have never played these practical jokes anymore, except on the ghost," strike twins. They kept out, which means to run. "My own darling, thank God you're found. You must never leave my side again," murmured Mrs. Otis as she kissed the trembling child and smoothed the tangled cord of her hair. "Papa," said Virginia quietly, "I have been with the ghost. He is dead, and you must come and see him. He had been wicked, very wicked. He was really sorry for all that he was done. He gave me this box of beautiful jewels before he died." The whole family gazed at her mute amazement, but she was quite grave and serious, and turning round, she led them through opening in the wainscoting down a narrow secret corridor, which it flowing with a light candle, with he caught up with a table. Finally, they came to a great oak door and stunned the rusty nails. When Virginia touched it, it swung back on its heavy hinges, and they found themselves in a little low room with a vault ceiling. On one tiny grated window, level in the wall, was a huge iron ring, and chain in a was a great gaunt skeleton was stretched out at full length on the stone floor, seemed to be trying to grasp with its long freshened fingers on the fashioned and toucher and ever, which means a wooden board and mug that were placed just out of his reach. The jug has been filled with water, as it was covered inside green mold. There was nothing on the treasure but a pile of dust. Virginia knelt down beside the skeleton, folding her little hands together, and began to pray silently, while the rest of the party looked at the wonder and terrible tragedy whose secret was now disclosed to them. "Hello!" suddenly exclaimed one of the twins, who had been looking out of to try and discover in what wings of the house the room was situated. "Hello, the whole little almond tree has blossomed. I can see the flowers quietly pale in the moonlight." "God has forgive him," said Virginia gravely as she rose to her feet, and beautiful light to seem emulate, which means brighten up the face. "What an angel you are!" cried the young Duke, and he put his arm round her neck and kissed her.